to the live chat slash MMA uh, preview for the Saturday's card. Again, this is going to be, I think I'm going to continue to try to do this format where I do these live just in case people want to come in and chat. Or the other thing I'm going to do, by the way, at some point, I'm going to utilize this super chat thing where if you wanted to donate or something, you could do that. But what I'm going to be doing is if I'm running these, there are a couple of charities actually that I would rather that money go to. Um, so if you do see the super chat thing and you want to click it when I'm doing one of these things, I'm probably going to be going to March of Dimes, or there are like 4 different charities that I like to give to. So if you see that, just know I'm not getting that. It's not, probably not even going to go to True DFS. I'll probably just donate it. But when I guess when other people do it, if you want to tip them or whatever, I guess you can use the super chat function to do that. I'm not sure. Nonetheless, that's just one of the things about the live thing. But I like the ability to have, the possibility for people to ask questions if in fact they have any, and people are not quite used to it. So I don't imagine people are going to be getting there all the time. But the thing that's kind of be difficult is, again, the scheduling, because I know that with most live streams, you know well in advance when it's going to be. I'm trying to do better, but my schedule is extremely swamped. So sometimes it just kind of happens. This time I had a little bit of notice, so I was able to schedule it in advance. The best way to stay on top of all this is to just follow the YouTube channel, because I think that when you follow it, you get notifications and all that stuff. You get notified when something might be scheduled. I think I'm not as in tune with it, but it seems to be the case. So we're going to be looking at it today from a DraftKings perspective, and this week, almost more than any other, there's just an insane difference between the two approaches, whether we're trying to make money betting or try to make money, or when we try to make money using DFS. So, yeah. So what I want to do is I want to attack the slate this way, and you got to bear with me on this one. There are 2 plays on this slate which I am going to consider going 100% on in the 150 max. There might be 3, but there's certainly 2, and I want to make the case for both of them. One of them is going to be an easy one to make the case for. The other one is going to be not as easy, but I think that when you feel the logic, maybe you could agree with me. But I'm pretty well convinced that that's what I'm going to do. So with that said, let's get right to it. The first, I guess, quote unquote lock kind of came to us by accident. Carlton Harris was supposed to fight, Abubakar Nurmagomedov, and that would have been an interesting fight. I mean, he was about a minus 130 favorite or something like that, and I actually kind of liked him a little bit, but Nurmagomedov backed out, or I would say backed out in a negative way, but anyway, the fight's off, and they replaced him with Jared Gooden. And the way DraftKings salaries work is they can't take the salary back once they put it in. Now they're going to put, a salary for Gooden in, probably going to end up being like 6,900, because when you look at the odds on that replacement fight, you have Carlton Harris is about a plus, even accounting for the VIG, about a minus 270 favorite. So, yeah, they can make good in the right price. This is probably about 6,800, but they can't do anything about the Harris price. So Harris is an $8,300 fighter. Excuse me. He's priced at 8,300, where he should be about 9,200. So even if there's no inside the distance prop to speak of at all, and we'll get to it. I mean, they didn't even put it up yet, but he's just a lock. I mean, this is just the math. This is what I like to call a theoretical lock. You just can't fade guys at 8,300 that are minus 270 to win. So Not to mention, I mean, he opens up the salary for everybody else. So it's that's the first thing. And one thing I have noticed, by the way, is that maybe it's because people are too fancy and things like that. These types of spots are typically lower owned than, well, at least if I ran simulations, uh, I would probably simulate him being in the optimal almost 100% of the time. That's how little I know about simulations, because obviously he's not going to be 100% of the time. Right? But he's I really think you should play him in every lineup. That's just my opinion, and that's just maybe just my math and my other math stuff just kind of playing in. It's just too much to fade. Now again, it's going to be really highly owned. I get it, but think about it. I mean, if he's 50% owned in the lottery, I mean, I just think it's too little. What can I tell you? And yeah, I mean, you want to play Gooden. I guess he's got a shot. I mean, he's 3-1 to win, and you're going to be up against somebody that's going to be 50, 60% owned. But I don't know. I don't like betting 3-1 underdogs. So Harris is the first thing. I would really consider this kind of a theoretical lock. Now, I'm going to get to the second one, and I want you to bear with me on this one as well. So in the main event, you have Petr Yan against Merab. You have 9,200 and 7,000, and I want to look at the price here. The win odds are about, you have Petr Yan about a minus 240 given vig or something like that, which means that about what's that, 70% of the time he wins. Does that make sense? 70% of the time he wins, and 30% of the time Merab wins. But I think that Merab should literally be locked in and played in every single lineup. And I'm going to explain why this is. Remember, DFS is not about picking the winner. It's not even about picking the right value. It's about picking the right lineup and the right potential score. And I talk about win condition quite a bit when we do these breakdowns. And here's the reality: is Merab is a very, very specific style. He gets zillions of takedowns, and that is overall his path to victory. Okay, there was one fight where that didn't take place, and that was in his last one against Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo is literally known for having the best takedown defense in the history of the UFC, and Merab could not take him down. He somehow got the win anyway. But here's the thing: Petr Yan is a top fighter. He does have decent takedown defense. He has a very, very good get-up game. But what happens is that having a good get-up game only helps Merab's fantasy score. Okay, one of the things about Merab that they take quite a bit of flack for is that, well, he can get the takedowns. He doesn't do that much with them. He can't really keep the guy down. He just has to keep taking the guy down. And while that might not be the greatest thing, as far as getting subs and getting wins, it's just the complete path to DraftKings victory. Okay, and just to show you, we're going to look at some of these fantasy scores. 164 points, 108 points in a decision, 148 points in a 3-round decision, 124 in a 3-round decision, 129 a 3-round decision. Okay. And so I bring all this up because this is a 5-round fight. And he also has unlimited cardio. So his path to victory is over 5 rounds, just continuously taking down Petr Yan, and this is important, and either getting a finish, which he probably won't do, or getting the decision. Now, getting the decision, it's not so easy, especially in today's UFC. So in today's UFC, they have been rewarding the strikers over the grapplers. We've seen grapplers get some takedowns and not do much with them and lose rounds to fighters that just outstruck them. And this certainly seems like the kind of fight where that could happen, right? Where Merab gets everything he wants. He gets a million takedowns, doesn't really do much with them. And then when Peter Yan gets up, Peter Yan just does more of the damage striking. And then at the end of the fight, you just swear that Merab won because he did absolutely everything he wanted to do, and yet Yan would get the decision. Now that's certainly possible. Keep in mind, by the way, that Petr Yan definitely is not the greatest decision getter. I mean, he's been involved in a couple of decisions where people thought he won where he didn't. So judges don't particularly like him. But here's the thing. We already presumed that Merab was going to win 30% of the time. All right? We already factored in the tough to win the decision thing, the fact that it's kind of hard to get a decision if you're a grappler and all this stuff, and yet still you have 30% of the time. So in those 30% of the times, okay, what do his wins look like? Imagine a guy that gets all these fantasy points getting decisions in 3-round fights, having another 2 rounds to work with, increasing his possibilities by maybe 40% of getting more takedowns. This ceiling is just insane for Merab. Okay. Now, remember, we're not having discussion of whether it's going to happen or not, right? You want to debate me on this? You want to say, oh, there's no way he's going to take him down. Yan has good takedown defense. Jan's going to beat him up. Jan's going to knock him out. All that is fine. And all that is in that 70% bucket. Okay. But the 30% that he wins, I mean, I never say always. I just can't imagine him getting the win and not smashing the crap out of the slate. Okay. I want to put it to you another way. Let's say you have 100 fights between these guys. All right. 100 fights between Petr Yan and Merab. And you have 100 scores up there. You have 70 of them that are Petr Yan wins, right? And then you have 30 of them that are Merab wins. I would suggest if you list the winning fighter's score and sort by that over the 100 fights, I would say that at least, I would say like 2/3 of the top 20 are going to be Merab. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think Petr Yan's ceiling is, I almost want to say Merab's floor in wins. You know what I mean? Like, Petr Yan remember, Petr Yan's a slow starter. Okay, he doesn't get first round KOs anyway. You know, I mean, it's possible that, I don't know, he gets a reversal, gets a whole bunch of ground and pound. I'm just looking at Petr Yan's wins and are being like 110, maybe 115, and I just don't see Merab's victories underperforming those. So for me, I would just want to just play Merab in every lineup and take those 30% chances. The other thing that you want to consider is this. It's very possible that Merab loses and is still in the winning line. You know, even if Merab, gets a decision loss, I'll tell you this, if he makes it 5 rounds, it's going to be because he had a bunch of takedowns. What's up, Diggs? It's going to be because he had a bunch of takedowns. So even in a loss, he's got a little bit of a floor. Okay? He could get, he could get 70 points in a loss. You know what I mean? Like, so that's my opinion on that, is that in addition to Carlston Harris, I think that locking in Merab is really the almost I hate to say this, but almost a mathematical lock. Now, it's not like a fight lock. In other words, it's going to lose 70% of the time. But even of those 70% of the times that he loses, you're still not even dead with him, with Merab, because he could still make points in a loss. Like, let's say you get one of those cards like last week where all the favorites win. You're going to want to have the best loser in the loss end in your lineup anyway. And there are variations where at 7K, he scores 60 points in a loss and outscores a lot of these lineups. So that is like the overall context of the slate, as far as I'm concerned, is Carlston Harris and Merab are being like clearly the two best plays. Okay, now with that said, I want to talk about one other play which I think is extremely strong, and then we're going to go up fight by fight. So again, what we're looking for is our kind of good inside the distance props relative to their price. And the first one I want to talk about, we're not going fight by fight here. The first one I want to talk about is Cedric Dumas versus Josh Fremd. So you have Cedric Dumas, who is a minus 200, and he's got an inside the distance prop, which is extremely strong. It's minus 120. And this is the type of inside the distance prop that you look for $9,100 fighters. And Dumas is 8,800. So he is probably, with the exception of these two guys, probably the best overall play on the slate. Now, that doesn't mean you have to play him, because he's gonna gather with him quite a bit of ownership. And if you want to get some leverage, I think Fremd is very much in play here. I think that people are going to look at Dumas. I think they're going to look at this inside the distance prop. They're going to look at the fact that Josh Fremd just got subbed in his last fight, and there's a kind of cool narrative which is kind of easy to speak about, that Dumas is extremely strong with his guillotines, and Josh Fremd just got beat by a guillotine. So obviously that's what Dumas is going to do. It doesn't necessarily work that way. So even though Fremd doesn't exactly have the greatest inside the distance prop, it's not bad. I mean, it's plus 300. It's not the worst in the world. And given the fact that Dumas is going to be extremely high owned, I do think that Fremd is a decent leverage piece here. So I'm not too thrilled about his potential upside. I think that if he wins, he's going to kind of grind him out in a decision. But maybe get some takedowns. Maybe a decision is good enough. So I definitely think that he's got some leverage here. But Dumas, just in and of himself, is probably, with the exception of Harris and Merab, like the best play overall in the slate. Now, when we're talking about the rest of these, we're going to take quite a few liberties, because we'd like to get as many combinations as possible to go with these two, if in fact that's what we want to do, right? We don't necessarily have to play this way, but I want to have a little more, leeway. So I want to start at kind of the top of the card here, meaning the main events. And first thing we'll talk about is Romanov versus Volkov. So you have Romanov at 8,600, and we talk about win condition. And Romanov's first of all, his inside the distance prop is what? It's almost a pick'em, maybe like plus 125 or something like that. But you throw in his win condition, right? His win condition is so wrestling based. I mean, he just comes after people and drops them to the ground. And Volkov is really, really poor with his takedown defense. He gets taken down by almost everybody. So when you put that kind of stylistic matchup together, it's kind of bad news for Volkov. Now, there's also, there's a yin and a yang, right? So the thing about Romanov is that in his last fight, and whenever I say in his last fight, a bell should immediately be going off in your head saying recency bias, right? So you don't always have to presume the last fight is what's going to happen in this fight. But in his last fight, Romanov basically almost destroyed Tybura in the first round. took him down, pounded on him, sat on top of him, won basically a 10-8 round, and then just had nothing left for rounds 2 and 3. And I shouldn't say nothing left. Sabura is a good fighter, but the majority of his win conditions certainly looked like it was in that first round. And Volkov is definitely the best, probably the better overall fighter. So the idea is that if Romanov doesn't get him out of there in the first round, Volkov could win, could take over here. But again, when it comes to win condition, I mean, at 8,600, I would say not all of his wins, but certainly a good chunk of them are going to be optimal. Two takedowns and a ground and pound sub. I mean, that's 130 in the first round. You know what I mean? So it's just somebody you have to have some of, because if he does his thing, you're just out. If you don't have him. Now again, this is late in the card, so you won't know you're out till later, but you will have been out. The other side of this, Volkov, I do think is a decent leverage play. Because I think a lot of people are going to think what I think, and the fact is, if Volkov does survive, he could, put it on him in the second and third round and maybe get a late third round finish, which is going to be more than enough for 7,600. So I like both sides of this. Now, Romanov is obviously like the A side, okay? But certainly Volkov is a decent play. And again, you're going to hear that a lot because I'm trying to make case. I'm not going to try to make cases, but in the absence of evidence to the contrary, I want to give everybody a chance to participate in this player pool, because if you're going to lock a couple of guys in or really make strong opinions, you want to, play some combinations. All right, and the next one, Krylov versus Spann. So this was the main event that got canceled a couple of weeks ago. And what's interesting is that everybody was going to be playing this fight when they thought it was a 5-round fight. And now that's a 3-round fight, it doesn't seem like such a big priority for everybody. But forgive me, but it's the same fight. This was like minus 1,000 to make it past third round anyway, pretty much. So it's the same fight, even though it's only 3 rounds. You're not playing either of these guys to make it, to get a decision or to win in the 4th or 5th round. So it really is the same. So I don't know what's really different. Well, I guess it's different. It's a different slate and all that. But so, I mean, we'll take a look at it, and same thing. You have a inside the distance prop for both guys, which is worth playing. Krylov inside the distance minus 110. This is just as good as Dumas, right? And Spann inside the distance, like plus 200 for his price. I mean, extremely strong, So I think that this fight you should probably get, both sides of. So you have the Volkov-Romanov fight. You have the Krylov-Spann fight. So you're basically backloading a lot of this. But the good thing is now, again, I think that a lot of these other fights are sort of fraudulent. Okay. Now, again, they could happen. And again, I'm going to get a piece of a lot of these, but there's a lot of fishiness in some of these other fights. So let's just go through them for a second. So first of all, first fight of the night, you have Bruno Silva versus Tyson Nam. And this is interesting. So you look at Tyson Nam, it's so tempting to do this, right? When he wins, look at this. First round KO, second round KO, first round KO. Scores 105, 95, 126. It's tough. I mean, that's somebody that you want to play, right? Because you look at the inside the distance prop here. It doesn't really look that good just because of his win odds, right? He's maybe like a plus 200 to win. But you look at his inside the distance prop, it says Nam inside the distance is like plus 320. See, I don't believe a word of that. I mean, I don't see a universe where he wins by decision. So, I mean, I guess he's not going to show up as that great of a play because of this inside the distance prop. But the fact is that, I don't know, you probably should get some of it, right? Because if he gets that KO in the first round, which is, it's certainly in the cards, you're going to want that. Let's look at De Silva. De Silva, we got to be a little greedier with him. See, De Silva inside the distance is pretty poor. I mean, he's plus 180 or 190 inside the distance. So That's not exactly what we want out of a $8,900 fighter. So if we have to start fading guys, I guess I'd start with Silva. I mean, I can't envision a world where I play Silva over, say, Dumas, Romanov, Krylov. You know what I mean? Now he's going to be low owned as a result, but you can't play everybody, right? You get this fight, this Henry Gravely fight. Now again, like on another card, this is a fight you'd have to kind of look at because it's a middle range fight, and Gravely has takedown upside, right? I mean, even you look at his game logs. I mean, like 11 takedowns, 4 takedowns, 2 takedowns, 7 takedowns, 5 takedowns. I mean, he just kind of has to be in your player pool here, right? And then you have Victor Henry, who this is really funny. So he came in at 6,900, which made him like a 4-1 underdog, and he just teed off on Barcelos for 3 rounds, like 180 significant strikes. And then what they did, they put him right back in October, and he was a 4-1 favorite, and he barely showed up against a Sunshao. So we don't know what to do with this guy, right? So unfortunately, I can't give you much of an opinion on either of these guys because it seems like a pretty fair line. And I guess I would say that Henry's the weaker of the two because he doesn't have exactly the same type of ceiling in a decision as Gravely does. But I don't know, like Gravely, he'll get the takedowns, but maybe won't do much with him. And maybe Henry can put it on him with a similar volume-based decision that he had over Barcelos. So unfortunately, I have to kind of include these guys a little bit in the player pool. All right. Aldridge versus Lipsky. So Aldridge is 9,400, and she's just not going to work, I don't think. I mean, you look at her, the reason why she's going to be played, or at least I don't even know if people are going to play her, but the fact is that she just put on a good performance against Erin Blanchfield, who just then put on an amazing performance against Jessica Andrade. So you're getting a whole bunch of MMA math gurus just putting it together that if Aldridge was good against Blanchfield and Blanchfield was awesome, then obviously Aldridge is a lock. Doesn't work that way necessarily, right? They're making her minus 400. We'll get to the money line stuff in a second. But at 9,400, I mean, you need better than this. You need her inside the distance prop is like plus 230. I mean, you can't play that. I mean, unless you're going to tell me that she's getting a whole bunch of takedowns and ground and pounds, you just can't play her. So she's probably going to be, as close to a fade as I could probably come up with. Lipsky, I just don't like to play plus 330 underdogs. We'll talk about, in DFS. You just don't win often enough. I will say, though, that on this card, if I'm playing 150, I'm going to have to get a sliver, just in case she gets some random submission. It is women's MMA, and there's a lot of just variance in there. I just don't want all my other stuff to come in and the Lipsky thing just stop me from winning 100,000. So I'm going to probably have a small piece, but certainly not any kind of priority or a priority underdog or anything like that. So this fight, probably I'm not going to have too much of. Okay, so Mario Batista versus Guido Canetti. This guy is 9,700. Okay? Mario Batista is 9,700. And so let's think about this for a second. What do you have to do usually at 9,700? You've got it. I mean, you not only have to win in the first round, but you also have to get like takedowns. You either have to knock the guy out in 60 seconds or get multiple takedowns and a sub in the first round. I mean, because you need like 120, like at 9,700 to really get there. I mean, we talked about this with Bo Nickel last week, right? So Bo Nickel last week, I mean, he was 9,500 and he was like a huge favorite to win in the first round, but who cares? I mean, 120 points is not easy. And I know this is like asking for it with MMA math, but this guy lost to Trevin Jones, who literally threw like 2 significant strikes in his last fight. And you look at his win scores. I mean, 118, I guess I would take. 105, no. 104, no. 87, no. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of hard to expect something from a guy who's never done this before. And the one thing he has going for him is Kennedy is going to give him action. You know, Kennedy is really just wants to come out there in the first round and do his thing. So I guess the fight does rate to finish in the first round. I'll probably get some of him. Just in case he gets that 120. I don't want to have, Harris and Merab come in with it and just me lose because I didn't get any of Batista. But it's certainly not a priority here. And Kennedy. So Kennedy is one that I will try maybe, even though, he's plus 800 to win. So the thing is that he's plus 800. That means he only wins 12% of the time. But of the 12% of the time, probably makes the optimal, right? Because you get a first round KO almost all the time if Kennedy wins this fight. So, yeah, unfortunately, going to have to get a little bit of that. Again, neither of these guys are a priority, though. Carl Williams versus Rushak Bresky. We're going to talk about a couple of things with this fight when we do the MMA betting breakdown. But so here's the deal. Bresky in his last fight, apparently, he got robbed by the judges in his fight against Martin Boudet. And that's what everybody's talking about, So I think Bresky has a little bit of kind of like love and recency bias to him. But you have Carl Williams, Carl Williams, as a wrestler, he's a pure wrestler, and to the point where speaking of Bo Nickel, right? Carl Williams had a fight in another promotion where he fought another Penn State wrestler. Bo Nickel was Penn State, and the Penn State wrestler was supposed to take this guy to the woodshed, and Carl Williams basically out wrestled him the whole fight. So he's certainly in play because of his wrestling. The only thing is that he's 9K, so at 9K with a basically non-existent, I shouldn't say non-existent. Williams inside the distance is plus 200. And he's got takedowns as well, but it's not exactly, aggressive takedowns he looks to do. So I guess he's fine, but certainly not a priority. And the Bresky side of this, his path to victory is really not, I don't believe, by finish. His inside the distance prop is about plus 400. His path to getting in the optimal is winning a fight similar to Victor Henry, getting like a whole bunch of volume in. But it's hard to get that much volume in a guy that's going to just keep on trying to press you up against the cage and wrestle you. It's kind of hard. So this fight's probably a pass. If anything, maybe a little bit of Carl Williams. Okay. Petrino versus Tricali. Look, it's a fight where on the surface it doesn't look that great. Look at the inside the distance props. You have Tricali inside the distance plus 300, but you have Petrino inside the distance is plus like 180, and given their prices, which are, where are these guys? Where'd Petrino go? 8,208K. This is probably a decent play, And the thing about Tricali, even though his inside the distance prop is not that great, he definitely has a little bit of wrestling upside. It's not exactly the most aggressive wrestling upside. As I said, just like Carl Williams, he's more of a guy that's going to wrestle and then just kind of like try to hold you down. So it doesn't really have the type of ceiling. But again, in MME, it's kind of hard to ignore. So I would get slivers of these guys too. Now when I'm talking about slivers, when I'm talking about all of these other like ancillary fights, again, we're talking about maybe 10, 15%. We are really, this is the way I'm doing it, like just really overweighting those key fights. That's what I'm doing. It's hoping to get the right combinations out of the rest. Let's look at Ricardo Ramos versus Austin Lingo. So Ramos is a 9,500 So at 9,500, remember what you need here. You need both first round KO and either have that come in the first 60 seconds or have it mixed in with probably 2 takedowns. And unfortunately, he doesn't have that. I mean, I really don't think this is in there. Like Ramos is inside the distance prop. You have um, plus 125. It's not good enough. And he doesn't really have that kind of aggressive wrestling style. So it's just kind of a pass. Between him and Batista, I actually like Batista a little better. Just because I know that fight is probably ending in the first round. See, like in that fight, in the Batista fight, I'm not the slightest bit worried about him winning. I'm just worried about his score. The Ramos thing, I mean, from what I've heard, he's basically no lock anyway. I mean, Lingo is apparently trains with good guys, and he's kind of a good boxer. And I don't know. I kind of want to take a little flyer with Lingo as well. He is 6,800, if I'm not mistaken. See, Lingo is 6,700, and he's not like plus 700 or anything like that, like some of these other guys. Like he's only like a 3-1 underdog. And at 6,700, it's really not that bad. 25% of the time he's going to win. The only thing is that when he wins, he's not always going to be optimal. I mean, like he can win like a striking boxing a match if, let's say, Ramos is just kind of not into it or whatever it is. So Lingo could be that big underdog that you hit that doesn't even make optimal. But so like for him, but the thing is that the reason why I still think a better probably underdog than Kennedy is he has so few winning chances, So for me, it looks like Ramos is probably close to a fade, and Lingo I'll probably have a little bit of. All right, if you have to pick a fight to just full fade, I guess it would probably be this next one. Said Nurmagomedov versus Jonathan Martinez. This just feels to me like a fight which is going to play out on the feet, and someone's just going to get a decision. And Martinez has good leg kicks, very patient. Said Nurmagomedov is mostly a striker. He does have some submissions, but only when he's forced into those types of positions. I just feel as though this one kind of stays at range and nobody scores well. We'll take a look at the inside the distance props, and that kind of bears that out. You have Martinez inside the distance is plus 650. Nurmagomedov inside the distance is plus 240 at 900, which is at 9,000, which is extremely poor. So I'll probably, if I have to full fade any fight, it might be this one. If anything, I will take something like a little bit of Martinez, but I think Said is probably going to end up being the full fade for me. I want to say that that's it. Did we get through all of this? No, we forgot one. We forgot Davy Grant versus Asuncao. And the reason why we forgot that, I can pretend I did that on purpose, but I didn't. This is another one I'm probably inclined to fade. All of Asunciao's fights are just kind of really boring. He's kind of like where fantasy points go to die. So I'll probably end up fading that. I mean, let's take a look at the inside the distance props. You have Asuncao inside the distance is plus like 8 million. I can't play that. So Grant inside the distance is not the worst. I mean, he's plus 230 or so. But he is, I guess, at 8,500. I guess that's somewhat reasonable. But I'd much prefer to play like Romanov, right, for example, or Dumas or something like that. So maybe this fight's kind of another type of fade. So again, just to review, I really feel as though you could play Harris and Dvalishvili in every lineup and get away with it. I just think they're just two incredible plays. And the cool thing about it, and the cool thing about DFS is they both get KO in the first round. I can say it doesn't matter because it was just theoretical. Right? I mean, if Harris loses, I mean, he's going to lose 20% of the time. That's the way it goes. If Dvalishvili gets KO'd in the first round Hey, it happens. It'll happen like 10% of the time. But we have to play the percentages here. Feel as though that the theoretical win odds for Harris is just too strong to pass up, and I think the overall ceiling for Marab and his wins is too good to pass up. And then again, I would probably highlight this Dumas Friend fight. Dumas as a great play and Friend as leverage, and both the Romanov Volkov sides and the Krylov Span sides as kind of like your, these are like your cash single entry type builds, like stuff like this. And then we talked about a zillion other guys we could put into this last spot. And then you're going to be off to the races. Okay, so tomorrow I'm going to do an MMA betting breakdown where if anybody has questions, we will answer those as well. And I guess that will do it. Good luck in this weekend's